When you feel confused, it can be hard to know what's happening inside of yourself. It's easy to feel distracted or anxious and feel like your brain is firing in all these different directions. It's really hard to deal with. So how do you get back to yourself? How do you get grounded and centered and figure out the right action to take? So this is the question I want to answer today. How do we stop falling down the same hole with our thoughts and our patterns? Just like that story, I walk down the street, I don't see the hole, I fall in the hole, and it takes me a long time to get out. And we just keep doing that over and over until finally, like, what's the thing that helps you identify the hole in the street, walk around the hole, or take a different street entirely? So what I advise you to do is first track what's starting the pattern, because there's some kind of pattern that you get into where there's a trigger and it's something that activates your parts, activates your emotions. And instead, what we usually do, what most people do, is they just follow the thread of their feeling, right? Oh, I feel sad. I want a cookie. I want to take a nap. I want to hide. I want to, I'm going to do all these coping behaviors. And instead of following the thread that always takes you a place that you ultimately don't want to go and takes you a long time to get out of that place of confusion, of dissociation, instead, track what the trigger is at a time when you're not upset. Like, reflect on it with a friend, with a practitioner. How does this start? How does this happen? And then learn to identify the process. Trust the process instead of how you're feeling in the moment. So, for example, I was just working with a client a couple days ago, and we identified this pattern that they get into when they are trying to take a break, when they need to take rest. And that activates that person's inner critics to say, no, you can't rest. You have to keep hustling for your worthiness. And then they try to argue with the inner critics. No, it's okay. I mean, rest is good. We're allowed to rest, etc., etc. And then they just keep getting that inner critic attack, which then triggers the inner child who, when feeling attacked, just kind of like shuts down, right? And so that's what leads to that confusion and that dissociation. And I think this is actually really common for a lot of people. If you had any experience of being told that your experience wasn't okay, that it wasn't okay to rest, that in any way you weren't good enough when you were a kid, then your inner critics have that script, and they're going to use it to try to bully you into doing things, into being more perfect, which is impossible anyway. So if you can track that pattern at a time when you're not upset, when you're just kind of reflecting, then you can understand the pattern and you can trust the pattern, not your feelings. So when you go to take a rest, like, this is the leverage point, whatever the trigger is. So say the trigger is taking a rest. When you go to take a rest, you know those inner critics are going to show up, and you're prepared for them with a big doorway that's like, get out. You guys don't get to argue with me. You guys don't get to tell me that I'm bad. We're not having this conversation. This is how you don't fall down the same hole. This is how you take a different road. Figure out what the trigger is for the pattern that happens, because I guarantee you there's a pattern, and then trust that that pattern will happen. Don't listen to the feelings and the thoughts that are always going to be tripped as the loop, because in that moment, you're not really fully in charge of what's happening. You're responding to a trigger. So instead, know the trigger, trust that the pattern is going to happen, and leverage, like insert a different interruption in that pattern to stop it from happening. Try it out. Tell me what you think. I am really curious to see if this works for you.